chat is ready to go. So am I, finally, a little bit late. I was moving like a slowpoke today. I'm also testing out my new lapel mic. I actually recorded with it with my 2 podcasts yesterday, but I haven't had a chance to listen back to the audio. So I'm assuming it's amazing. So we're gonna go with that. Welcome to the Midnight Diner. This is Dread Pirate KK, streaming live from the Crossroads. It is September 20th. Hilariously, it is 11:17, the time I used to start. So it's actually kind of what I wanted to, it ties into some of the stuff I'm going to be talking about today because I titled this episode, Don't Look Back. We'll get into all of that stuff in a bit. First, I'm going to drink some water because I just had a snack and I feeling thirsty. It's not as hot today, thank Christ, at least in this room. Oh my God, when I was recording yesterday with Shay for Sultry Circus, I just was like pouring sweat. But today I'm getting here a little bit earlier and it was pretty cool last night and I don't even know what's going on right now. Okay, so this is the last stream from this current studio. My last little Crow and Deep Space Nine model in the background in this way. Feeling some feelings about it, but not like bad. Just, you know, any transition is kind of, you just feel things. And then we're in the middle of eclipse season. So the second eclipse of the season is tomorrow on the 21st. It's a partial solar eclipse in Virgo. And so it's a second new moon in Virgo. We had the first new moon in Virgo at the end of August. And that was at 0 degrees in 23 minutes, but 0 degrees of Virgo. And this new moon is at 29 degrees of Virgo. And I know I talked about it a little bit in my stream when I streamed on the new moon in Virgo at 0 degrees. And that 23 minutes part is, for me, like DNA, chromosomes, you know, whatever. It just felt like, and Virgo rules the 6th house, which is the body. And it feels like a real bookend of new stuff, like massive endings, but a lot of new beginnings. And like the 6th house is also like daily life and job and, you know, the things you take responsibility for and do every day kind of thing. And so that 23 minutes just really felt like not just DNA stuff and body upgrades and clearing out some of the density in our bodies, but it also felt like endings and new starts for these new beginnings that we are starting. And the Pisces eclipse in the middle of that on September 7th was a massive endings. And I knew it would be. Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac, and there was just a humongous shadow purge. And it had been going on since August with the whole big emotional low and all that, the Schumann resonance and stuff that I was talking about the last Virgo new moon stream. But just a lot of endings and people are really feeling it. And I'm just going to welcome you into the Midnight Diner to kind of contextualize and take a breather and just connect with a frequency that will help you realize that everything is going to be okay, even though it is pretty insane right now. And I know people are feeling it pretty intensely, but we do have our little, we do have our little dragon with the little heart from Mothership. And she is here to just give some more soothing energy. This new moon also, or this lunation with the eclipses and all that stuff, it's also bringing in a reversal of the moon phases. So normally, well, what feels normal to us is the new moon first, you're planting the seeds for the new beginnings, and then the full moon is like the culmination and then the release and that kind of stuff. And that's usually new moon first, you know, but now, and we've been in that, it does this reversal, going back to normal, reversal, going back to, I say normal, you know what I mean. It happens fairly frequently. It's like every year or so we kind of go through this where now that we had the Pisces full moon and first, and now we're having the new moon second, so it kind of feels backwards to us. So when the eclipse happened in Pisces, you know what? Fuck this. I got to take my glasses off. I know I'm going to be sweaty, so we're just going to fuck this. I don't want to keep. So the endings came first with that Pisces eclipse, and this Virgo new moon is coming in with new beginnings, but also endings, because the South Node, the great anus of the zodiac, according to Judith Hill, where we're pooping out all of the stuff that just no longer serves us, all the stuck energies, all the density. So it's a real mixed bag right now of like really big endings and really big beginnings, and we're kind of not really seeing the beginnings yet. Like we have maybe an inkling or whatever, and it's kind of, there's just not a lot of clarity right now. And also I wanted to address that, some of that clarity stuff, because I haven't really been looking at the transits lately, like what the planets are doing, and I get bits and bobs here and there. So like, I don't know all the details of where every planet is right now because I'm just too tired. But I know Mercury is doing something, and it's causing, like a couple days ago, somebody texted me and they were like, what is the energy going on right now? And I could tell they were struggling a little bit. And then I realized that Mercury was doing whatever that was making us kind of go into mental, there was a lot of mental activity. It was like, figure it out. Why can't I figure it out? Where's the clarity? It was a lot of just stuff like that. And so if you've been feeling kind of like, the past few days, not only is it eclipse season, but it's also that Mercury thing. And Mercury rules the mind and thinking and, logic and reason and figuring things out and breaking things down into parts to figure out how to put the pieces together and stuff. So it's, if you've been just like, what the entire is going on, then it's normal. You are right on time with all these energies. And the best advice that I can give you right now is to sort of just stay in the body, like do things that make the body feel good, sort of do your best to keep the mental chatter at bay. And I know it's hard, so just, again, do your best. Nature is really helpful for this. I have also been triggered to scream a lot, which is kind of annoying because I actually wanted to talk about that too, because I was feeling a real rage yesterday and last night, and I was just kind of tired of that. Like, with the autism that I have, and like any neurodivergence, whatever, I have AuDHD, and if you don't know what AuDHD is, it's the combination of autism and ADHD, and it's always a spectrum. So if you know one person with autism, you know one person with autism. Like, it is very diverse in the experience of how we all embody this. And I think that a lot of us are kind of coming online with realizing that we are autistic and ADHD. ADHD usually gets diagnosed first because you can tell when you're just like hyperfixated on something, or you have the executive dysfunction of like, I literally cannot do the things that I want to do or need to do to keep myself alive. Like, I need to clean up. Like, there's a thing that's been sitting on my floor. I can't even remember what it is right now, but there's something been sitting on my floor, and I put it there so I would put it away. So, and I needed to put it on the floor so I could like step over it to remind myself, okay, I'm stepping over this. I need to remind myself to just, I will get it done if I keep stepping over it. And then you just keep stepping over it because the executive dysfunction is just like, I can't do it. And for people who don't have ADHD or don't understand all about that, it sounds like a real cop-out or like an excuse or something. You're just like, we'll just do it. But that's neurotypical behavior. You can say you're going to do something and then you do something. AuDHD is a disability, okay? And so it's hard to function in the systems that have been set up. And so it's kind of like, I think part of this future technology and some of the AI stuff that we're going to be seeing, like advancements, will help people like us who have ADHD to do those tasks that our executive functions just will not allow us to do. And that will be very helpful because, my dudes, I need a lot of help. And a lot of us are feeling like that. Anyway, so ADHD usually gets diagnosed or noticed first. And then for me, and I've heard a lot of women in particular talking about this, because ADHD has been for all of our lives, it's been like, teenage boys or boys in general, like they're like hyperactive and they can't sit still. And that's been our idea of what ADHD is, or ADD, whatever. And so girls, women, including adults, like we got to remember that this stuff is hereditary. And so a lot of these things our grandparents and our parents and like other family members have experienced, but because it wasn't allowed, or it wasn't really, we didn't know what that was, or we had we just kept having to function. And so we just, the older generations would have to just continue on and like pretend that nothing was wrong with them, or wrong, you know what I mean? Like I said, it's a disability in this old system. It's a superpower in the new system. We're just kind of bringing that online a little bit as we go, sirens. So yes, we're getting there, but it's a little bit difficult for those of us who've just been struggling our whole lives. And so it's funny, I see memes about autism, like, grandparents are like, autism didn't exist in my day. Also, grandparents, look at my collection of silver spoons, or like collection of haunted dolls. Or, it's just like one of those things where it's been there all along, but the medical system just hasn't been able to support people because we just don't. We're trying to fit people into a homogenized system and worker bee stuff. And when you have hyperfixation for ADHD, that's your superpower. Like your rabbit holes that you go down, that's what you're supposed to be sharing with the world. Like you're supposed to become an expert in all those areas, or the few areas, or whatever it is. And then the autism also is just kind of like very, it's more of that hyperfixation a little bit. Like you'll know like you've seen, for me, like every episode of Star Trek, and you can spew out all the like it's just like it's hard to describe all these things. I don't even really know why I'm kind of going off on this. It's just kind of coming out, which is one of those things that just happens. So I didn't plan on talking about the autism, so I just was, anyway, we're that's why I was talking about the rage and the okay. So with the autism, it's very, my nervous system is just extremely sensitive. I get overstimulated extremely easily, like loud noises, bright lights. I cannot. And so when I do get triggered to feel this rage and anger, in order to like clear out a blockage or, whatever. I also have other theories about some of the stuff that why I needed to experience rage, which I'll get into in a second. But just to kind of explain why anger, and we have rejection dysphoria. So that's one of the things where it's just like we're hyper vigilant about all behaviors. Like I am extremely aware of like how much space I take up and who's doing what, and body language and energies. And it's like a hyper vigilance. And it's so overstimulating to live in this system that we have built for ourselves. And so when I am at home and when I am alone and not out in the world, I really am just so focused on keeping this nervous system soothed, and the inner peace just is so very important to me. And so any conflict or any anger or rage, already with my nervous system that's overstimulated and I'm working on soothing it, it's too much. And so a lot of us will avoid conflict because we don't want to, the autism, and then again, not everyone with autism, this is just my experience with it. So anyway, it's just when I get triggered to feel the anger, and I know that some of this stuff is like me purging, lifetimes of rage, or even my own life, this lifetime where I've had to swallow a lot of anger, and it's kind of ancestral. Some of this stuff is like the things we took on to kind of alchemize for our ancestors and bloodline and all that stuff. Like a lot of my ancestors, especially the women, have had to swallow just a lot of rage, and the divine feminine has been pushed into the underworld and ignored and beaten down and hidden away and not listened to for eons at this point, because that was part of the old system that we agreed to. And at the higher soul levels, that was the it again, when I say games, it's like souls play these games like going to the gym and putting a lot of resistance on the weights so that you get stronger, and so shoving the divine feminine into the underworld and like doing the things that we have done to that energy for these eons. It is making us stronger in incredible ways, but it has kind of sucked. And so we're in the process of purging out a lot of these denser emotions. And that, again, does not have to, it's not just women who are like this, it is men too, because everybody has feminine energy. And so we have ignored our feminine energies, which is like the intuition, the feelings. We've had to swallow all of our feelings and pretend like, crying is bad and, all kinds of everything. So this is the kind of thing that's being purged out right now, especially with this Pisces eclipse. Pisces is a feminine sign. It's also a water sign, and water is emotions and memories and all, all kinds of stuff. So Pisces, Pisces, all the water signs like Pisces, Cancer, Scorpio, like we're all known as, well, not necessarily Scorpio so much, but like Pisces and Cancer in particular are known as the crybabies of the zodiac, because we're always just like feelings. Oh my God. And so that Pisces eclipse purged out a lot of those emotions. And I've been experiencing a lot of memories from earlier in my life where, I've had either a shameful experience or an embarrassing experience or, a sad, hurt, trauma, like the little things that I thought that I had just buried for so long, and they'll pop up. Like something from 5th grade popped up the other day, and I was like, dang, I didn't realize I was still holding on to that. So I was able to kind of release it, but I had to feel it. And I had to remember feeling like, it was just not a fun memory. So anyway, if you're coming across all these memories of like, the times when you've had to swallow your feelings and not cry and all that stuff. So if you're crying a lot for no reason, it's not for no reason. These things have to come out of you so that you can kind of, one, it's natural. I think crying is actually a very good thing. It's very cleansing. Salt in the tears, like water is cleansing, salt is cleansing and purifying. And so crying should be a normal experience for all of us. But it's kind of heightened right now because we're all feeling everything that's just been buried for so long. So anyway, that's been the experience of the eclipse so far for me. And a lot of endings. Okay. So the eclipse coming up tomorrow, we also have the equinox the day after on Monday. So the energies are just absolutely insane. And I know I've been talking about how this month is going to be a real turning point and a real, which is interesting, turning point. Anyway, we'll get to that in a second. It's in my notes. Don't worry, I won't forget. But it's just been, we're in a 9 year, numerologically, 2025 breaks down to a 9. And so September 9th, 999, like that triple 9 energy, and 9 is the closing, the ending of cycles, but also it's like not quite to the 10 yet, the 10, which breaks down to a 1, it's like 1 is the beginning of the new cycle, but the 9 is kind of like you're sitting in the endings. So this entire year, and it's also the year of the snake, which is shedding skin and shedding all kinds of habits and patterns and all, so much endings. We are sitting in a lot of discomfort. This year has been extremely turbulent because we can see some of these new things coming in, and we know a lot of these old things have to end, but we're kind of holding on to the old things because it's all we know, and the new is scary. And the energies that we're experiencing right now, it's like there just simply is no more certainty. We cannot rely only on our logic and reason and strategy. We are being forced into our heart space to feel our intuition and to get out of the mental space and into the body, which is the past couple days, that Mercury transit I was talking about, how it was kind of bringing up like, figure it out, what do I do, blah, blah, blah. And that's, get yourself back into your body and do something nice for yourself that your body enjoys. Dancing, if you don't like movement or doing any of that. Dancing is really nice though, because like, especially if you can just do it alone and be as flaily and not cool or whatever as you can, it's really helpful to your body to move out some of these denser energies. When we stay in our little, and I'm talking to myself here because I have not been moving a whole lot. And I think one of the reasons I've been experiencing so much rage is to like scream out some of the stuff that's just been kind of sitting there as I've been sitting there. The other thing that I wanted to bring in here about the screaming out of the rage and that kind of stuff is one of the so I have two podcasts. One is Sultry Circus, and one is called Space Cats Happy Hour. And so when I was recording Space Cats Happy Hour last night, my God, there's so much noise outside right now. There's so many motorcycles. Shut up. We were talking, or my podcast host, Zaddy Cat, was talking about the new children's book that they are writing, and it involves Sasquatch, and it's kind of like a Jack and the Beanstalk type fairy tale, but their own. It's like an element of it. It's really an original story, but part of it is like these magic beans, and the main hero of the story, you know, climbs up the beanstalk and goes into this other like world, and they're really scared because they're hearing all these like stomping and like, you know, the giant footsteps and whatever. But instead of it being a giant, it's actually a Sasquatch, or Bigfoot. I don't actually know the difference between Yeti, Sasquatch, Bigfoot. I kind of feel like Bigfoot is just a term that we. Like a slang term. This is what it feels like to me. And then Sasquatch is the actual name, and then there's also Yeti. And I think they're all related, and I think they all live in inner Earth. And there's a whole lot of stuff that we can talk about with these inner Earth beings that I may get to today. I don't really know, but it's also kind of related to the Lemurian energy that I've been talking about. They're very Lemurian. Anyway, so this part of the story where they're like stomping and whatever, it's a Bigfoot. And what they're doing by stomping is they're guarding portals, or I can't remember how they said it, but it was tied into something else that I had heard from the Monroe Institute, which I will explain in a second. But the Bigfoots were stomping around and not yelling, but just kind of like making a lot of noise, and maybe yelling. I don't remember what they were. I literally recorded this last night and I still can't remember, but they were keeping chaos at bay. So anything that was trying to get into this peaceful cloud world or whatever, the Bigfoots would guard against the chaos. And so anyway, tying into the Monroe Institute, if you don't know what the Monroe Institute is, it's Robert Monroe. He was, you know, he's no longer with us, but he started this institute for, you know, astral travel and, you know, basically all these supernatural things that we're talking about, like the hemisync. He's famous for the hemisync music, where you can play certain frequencies, and you have the headphones on, and it stimulates each half of your brain to kind of come together and like do out-of-body experiences and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, the Monroe Institute, I think, is somewhere in Virginia on like this mountaintop or whatever. And I was hearing someone talk about their experience, because if you go to the Monroe Institute for their retreat offerings, it's like a 6-day commitment, and so you stay there for 6 days, you do the things, whatever. It was a whole big long story, and it was great, and I loved hearing about it. But basically the point of this was that while this person was there, they encountered a Bigfoot and they were like, what's going on? And so then they learned that Bigfoot, or I'm just gonna call them Sasquatch and Yetis, they're guardians of portals, like big energy portals. They're there to kind of keep chaos at bay. And it was just hilarious because Zaddy Cat had not heard that at all. And I was like, when I was telling them that story about the Monroe Institute, they were like, oh, interesting. So it's just really cool how we're all quantumly connected and we can kind of pick up on all these frequencies and energies. So Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Yeti, nothing to fear. They're actually here for our benefit. And so, and they're real. But you don't have to believe me, but I don't really care because I have all the evidence I need. But anyway, so there's some side quests for you. I'm just kind of looking at my notes to kind of see what the shit is going on. I guess I'll finish up a little bit with the energies of September and then move into what is next on my list, because like the next thing on the list is a little bit off topic, or not off topic, but a very different topic. But so the 999 portal, it's like all the endings. So we had the Pisces eclipse on the 7th of September, and then the 999 portal. So it was like all these endings just got exploded out, and we were all shown like what has to end. It might not have ended at that moment because this is this is something that's going to be rolling out over the next 6 months. So this is like I feel like for me, anyway, so the port, the eclipse, all the endings that you were shown, whatever needed to be ended. And then the 999 portal just brought in a ginormous amount of codes, just like new codes coming in, like new ways of living. And we're not necessarily aware of all these things. Like, again, the clarity is not here. I don't know what these codes are. You know, it's higher light codes, it's higher consciousness codes, it's more enlightenment. So all of that kind of like came in right after as the eclipse was coming in. And then this eclipse in Virgo at the 29th degree, which is the ending, it's like the end of that sign. Every sign has 30 degrees. So we're at the end of that sign. So it's a huge, big bookend. This, and then the equinox, it's like we're sealing in all of the stuff that's like the old is out, and we're sealing in our newness, our rebirth kind of energies. And again, this is rolling out over the next 6 months, so it's not, but we're feeling it. So it's sealing it in this eclipse, and then the equinox is going the next day. And that's like another 0 point, the equal balance of day and night. And we're moving through this portal of coming back into balance. And so the things that were no longer for us, that were shown, we're ending on, during these eclipse portals, all the stuff that's ending, we're moving through the 0 point to be rebalanced and moving into our new chapters. And so part of this is like the don't look back thing, where there's plenty of mythology, whatever in the Bible, the woman who turns to salt because she looks back. And then the Orpheus, he goes down to rescue his beloved from the underworld, and Hades is like, okay, you can take her, but don't, she's going to follow behind you, but don't look back or she's going to have to stay here. And then Orpheus is like, okay, I'm going to do it. And then he looks back because he's doubtful and whatever. And then it fucks up. But that's another thing I wanted to address. And it's actually something that Shay and I were talking about in Sultry Circus. This portal that we're in right now in September, it's a rewriting of all the experiences we have had for millennia and all of our programming that's like telling us to wait for the other shoe to drop, or this is like don't look back kind of thing. It's like, if you, how do I want to say this? I'm kind of getting in my head about this and how to describe it. But like, we're afraid of the new things and all the juiciness and beauty that we can see on the other side of this fear that we're needing to walk through to get to the new stuff. And so all of these amazing new beginnings, we're afraid to take them because we're programmed that it won't last. It will be taken away from us. The other shoe is going to drop, like something bad is going to happen. Like, and Shay was describing how she had gone through this thing with her partner where he was leaving for a week, and she was like, oh, it's gonna be fine because like I spend plenty of time alone, whatever. But all of a sudden it felt incredibly like she was full of anxiety, and everything was, it felt really terrible to be going through this. And she was like, I don't understand what this is. And so as she meditated, she was like, oh, I've lived out multiple storylines of this is the last goodbye kind of thing. Like, I have this perfect life, this perfect partner, like everything is amazing. And then he goes off and maybe in previous lifetimes it would be like, oh, you get killed, or, oh, whatever, something happens to take away the perfection of the things that we can see for ourselves that are coming out. That is no longer the case. We are guaranteed to have these beautiful new beginnings because Earth herself is asking for these new beginnings and wanting to be in this higher consciousness where there is heaven on earth. And heaven on earth is, I don't know how people feel. That's one of the things I'm going to talk about later on anyway, but we can have the paradise that we've been promised. And all of our stories, all of our movies, like, again, we're programmed by our artists, and all the art that's coming through or has been coming through are stories about like, oh, it's just like there isn't anything such as happily ever after kind of thing. And even when the stories do end with happily ever after, it's like, it's not quite satisfying because you don't know actually what happens. Like, there's because there is stuff to work out. It's not, we're just in this transition where it's hard to see what's happening. But anyway, it's going to be okay. But a lot of the fear that we're feeling is very much based on those old stories of like, we're going to lose all the good stuff, and so we're going to hold on to the old, even though it's poisonous, because at least that's comforting. At least we know it's like a a false sense of control. You're like, if you keep drinking the poison, you're like, well, at least I know how to deal with the poison that I'm drinking. But this new thing, this new promised beginning, it's like, how can I trust that, kind of thing. So I see a chat. Well, hello. I don't know who you are, but hello. Anyway, so this is a huge portal that we're in. So be very gentle to yourself, very kind, and again, come back into the body and just remind yourself that you are safe. Hear my voice telling you, you are safe, because you are safe. It is very scary. I still live with a lot of fear. and I, all the rage and anger that I'm kind of like screaming out, but I also didn't. Anyway, I think just quickly going back to the rage and anger thing, all the Sasquatch energy coming through, I realized that maybe one of the reasons I have been triggered to feel all of this rage and scream out things is because I am meant to keep the chaos at bay that's trying to come in. So if you've been feeling a lot of chaos, which is like a lot of mental chatter, a lot of anxiety, like a lot of fear, all that stuff, these are the forces that the dark forces are being flushed out of the old grid. The old grid is collapsing. The new natural Earth grid is coming online, which is very peaceful and harmonious and full of love and all that other stuff. But as the dark forces are flushed out, they're trying desperately to grab on to anyone's energy body that will have them, that will host them. And so it's constant work to keep your energy body very clear and soothed. And the more you can dance and like yell, like act like Bigfoot or whatever, just like stomp around and scream, or like, and if that is overwhelming to your nervous system, because for me, I cannot do that. I don't like it. I don't want to rage. I don't want to scream. I don't want to do any of these things. And so what I have determined to do is call in the energy of the Sasquatch and Yeti and be like, please help me keep this chaos at bay. And when it's up to me to do it, like when it's in my own energy field, I'm like, okay, I'm going to need to do something. I have a mothership playlist that I created on Spotify, and it's just all the songs I really like. And it's not only songs that I heard at mothership, but it's just kind of those energies of the music, and I just really love it. And I share it with my best friend from college, that we go there every year. So I feel her energy when I'm listening to these songs, and I feel the energy of being at that festival, and it's just like a really beautiful thing. And I will just crank up the volume on the speaker that I have and just like rattle the walls of the house. And so it's a joyful energy. The Bigfoot, the Sasquatch, it's a very joyful energy, and it's not rage filled. And so I would rather move into this more joy filled energy and not be so it feels like I'm just churning through the same rage. And I'm like, it's not even satisfying to scream anymore. I'm like, I want something different, but I don't quite know how to. And again, this is me, you're hearing me be like, how do I figure out how to get more peaceful? It's like, just let it happen. It's okay. You don't have to, clarity is coming, but in the meantime, just do the best you can to do things like dancing or turning up the music or, any of that kind of stuff. Okay, so there's that on that. I think I've tied up all my loose ends on that. But speaking of shadows and the exposing of shadows, the Pisces eclipse brought in the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And I don't give a shit what you think about him. I'm talking about the energetics behind this event. And so this was a massive throat chakra upgrade for the collective. And it's a couple other things. It's like coming back into God consciousness, but we're going to get there eventually. That's not where we're going yet. I just want to talk about the throat chakra upgrade, because this was a very serious attack it was a very overt attack on free speech. And so this is the kind of play that the dark forces, the powers that were, are trying to do to keep our consciousness low. Like, you can only speak about the things we want you to speak about, because our consciousness has to stay low for them to keep feeding off of our energy of fear and anger and bullshittery. So too many people are, when I heard that he was assassinated, I was like, oh, they're really trying to start World War III or a civil war in America. And they're not going to accomplish that. They're not, but it exposed a huge amount of shadow in the collective, particularly in America. And so I saw so many people who were just like, why the fuck are people celebrating that, like it was just one of those things where the ugliness of humanity was kind of coming out, where, again, no matter what you think of him, nobody should be assassinated. This is insane. There are other ways of going about this. And so the forces that are doing all this dark stuff to us, that's being exposed. And the people who are celebrating that kind of thing, and it's okay if you are like happy that he's dead or whatever. Like it's not bad to feel whatever you're feeling about this event. I'm just saying that because you can move through, like at the end of the day, even if you are happy for whatever reason that like the dark energy is gone or whatever, it's still, as we are not our thoughts. We have thoughts, but we are not our thoughts. Just like we're not a body, we are a spirit, we have a body. Anyway, so I had mixed feelings about all this stuff. So I'm going to be open and honest about all that. And honestly, I didn't even, like I knew who he was, but like I'd never heard anything. I just knew that he was this like very conservative, whatever kind of thing. And that I was supposed to think that he was bad, and all the programming that's been going on about him. And the thing that I did not enjoy about the stuff that I was learning about him was his Zionism, basically, like devotion to Israel, that kind of, or not Israel, but like the Zionist part of that stuff. And he was assassinated because he was starting to question the narrative. And they know if they lose a major voice like Charlie Kirk, that it's over for them. But the thing is, the plan backfires. And that's what always happens when we're moving into these enlightened ages, like speaking galactically, because this is definitely, our first movement into this new age, but like on a galactic scale, it's just, this is the kind of thing that happens. And so fear and the darkness always eats itself. There's nowhere to go because they're always just like craving more power and this and that and all that. It's like, if you're not sharing, at the end of the day, if you're the only one left standing, what is there to rule over, to have power over, to like whatever, because you're the only one, like it just, their plan never made sense, and it's just part of the storyline that we're playing out. So whatever. But, thoughts are kind of swirling a little bit. But anyway, a lot of people, even if they didn't like him, were horrified at the celebrations and the laughter and the, whatever of the people who were like, yay, he's gone. Because even if you don't like someone, again, it's just like, we're all humans. There's another way of doing this kind of thing. So people are waking up and waking up and waking up. And like Candace Owens, again, no matter what you think of her, she was his friend, very good friend. And she's like, not going to rest until all the lies are exposed. And I haven't been watching any of those shows yet either, because I just haven't been watching a lot of anything really. But she is a whole new series now about like analyzing all the evidence. And even if you don't like her, there are plenty of other people who are just like, literally this. And the thing is, this is the kind of thing we used to fall for. Like think about 9/11 and all the stuff that we fell for in that narrative and kind of stuff. And so we're now too awake. So now all the supposed text messages that the assassination, the person who supposedly killed Charlie, it was like, it's so obvious that a cop wrote it, like a Gen X or, older kind of person wrote all these messages, and everyone's talking about, they're like, do you think we're stupid? Like, this is clearly not. So it's like another JFK assassination kind of stuff where it's just, we're now, and because of the internet, again, the internet is a mixed bag of stuff, but the internet, I think, was supposed to be invented to get us to this new age of enlightenment. And again, it has been very bad because, social media, like there's just a whole mixed bag of stuff, but there's no more hiding for the dark forces because we can all just keep talking to each other about like what our thoughts are and like this and that. And so the information is spreading too fast to be controlled by the forces that were. And so they're losing control very, very fast. Like everything is collapsing. They're scrambling. Like that's why they're trying so hard to clamp down on us. They're trying to distract us with like declaring Antifa terrorist organization or whatever. It's like, what are you? So anything to distract from the Epstein list, so it's just all of the distractions coming out, everything it's all, we're all awake to what's going on. So anyway, I just wanted to address that because a lot of people, again, are the reason it was a throat chakra upgrade. One, he was shot in the throat. And so it was a very targeted attack on the throat chakra. Like if you're looking at this from a spiritual standpoint, it's like, oh, that's clearly don't talk unless you talk about approved things, that kind of stuff. And so when people realized that it doesn't, like, no matter how careful you are, no matter how, like, it cuts out the people pleasing in general, because a lot of the content creators I'm following are just like, they're seeing the poor behavior of the people who are just giving them a hard time for having sympathy for Charlie's family, and like all, like, just even, again, if you don't like him, it's still like a loss of the family, like all the things that make us human, that we care about other people. If there's a darkness rising, we can see it in our collective, where it's like, where there is no empathy, that is becoming very apparent. The people who are very stuck in that dark stuff, everyone who is seeing how the dark stuff is just like so ugly, and it's just so apparent, again, because of the internet. And so everyone is becoming like, we're calling it like dgaf mode activated, don't give a fuck mode activated. And we're no longer, and myself included, and this is because of one, the heckler that keeps coming into my chat trying to tell me I'm a bad person for, blah, 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 or give, whatever. It's like, I do not need to explain myself to anyone. We are all now willing to be misunderstood by the small percentage of people who are just insistent on not meeting us in a place of reason and humanity and empathy. And it's kind of like what I talked about the last stream with the NPC dialogue, where it's like they only have limited dialogue, and so you're trying to talk about these deep things, and they're, the Truman Show, the wife is like, he's trying to be like, I'm watched from the sky, and the wife is like, have you tried this hot chocolate? And it's like, what? So those kinds of arguments, the bad faith arguments, where we want to be, we're like, oh, maybe this person really didn't understand what I was saying, so I will explain more. And then they get you into this trap of like explaining your humanity or your own reason. And it's like, I don't need to explain myself to you. Block, just completely. And so many people are just done with the craziness of the, like, the comments in the YouTube section, or like, not just YouTube, but like any comment section where anybody is posting their opinions, their public face of everything, and getting comments like, why didn't you say this, or blah, 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 you should do this, and blah, blah. It's like, and we would cater to those people. It's like, oh, maybe we should say that. People pleasing shit. Maybe we should talk about this. Maybe we should re-explain this, blah, blah, blah. No, we are not for everyone. There is going to be a lot of people who just are going to not understand what we're saying, and we do not owe anyone else anything. We just simply do not. There are people around us who are meant to understand us, and if there is something genuine that we do need to work on, like, for example, if I have a friend who was talking to me the other day, was like, I need you to stop talking about this and do it, whatever, and I'm like, okay, that is completely acceptable. I understand where you're coming from, and we're not going to go into these topics anymore, and we'll just do it at a later time, or just never, or whatever. So those kinds of, that genuine feedback from people who are genuinely interested in connecting with you at a heart level and really trying to understand you, even if you don't agree on everything. Like, none of us are going to agree on everything all the time. But so if there's a genuine dialogue, that is acceptable. And our discernment muscles all over the world are getting even stronger about like who those people are. And we're not just going to be giving our attention to just anyone on the internet. And so this is one of those events that is kind of having us withdraw from the internet. This is happening gradually. It's already kind of going, where it's like, we see how bad the internet is. Like, there is also good stuff out there, and that's where we get a lot of information and, blah, blah, whatever. But we're withdrawing from like broadcasting to just anyone, or even if we are still broadcasting, it's like we don't have to listen to all the comments, that kind of thing. So it was a massive throat chakra upgrade, because we're now just speaking our truth without giving a single shit what anyone else thinks, or blah blah whatever. And then we're also just like not using the throat chakra to argue with people in bad faith. And it's spiritual discernment as well. It's kind of like, what is worth our time? Who is worth our time? And that's, these eclipses are bringing that in. Those like Pisces, very people-pleasy kind of energy. Like I have heavy Pisces placements, and that has been one of my massive lessons in just like no boundaries. Like I have to please everyone, you know, give everything. No, you don't have to do that. So anyway, big upgrades for me too. And I'm sure, again, September, as I talked about in previous streams, it's August and September, we're bringing choice points to us to align with the self that we came here to be. And September in particular is giving us these opportunities to make the adjustments that we need to make to become these people that we need to be. So that's why dgaf mode is activated on a lot of people, because we're just like, these are the adjustments. It's like, we don't need to give our energy. We're siphoning off our energy to energy vampires. Is when you call that energy back to you and don't think about the other people who are trying to get you to say shit that they want you to say, or this or that or whatever. You are so much more free. And so much more powerful, and so much, it's just like richer experience in life, and it's a much more peaceful experience in life, because there is just a lot of turbulence out there. There's just a lot of conflict, a lot of crap that we got to deal with. And so anytime you can cut those energy cords from the mosquitoes, they don't have any power over you unless you give it to them. You come back to center, and it's just a lot better. So I wanted to talk about that. So it kind of ties into the crackdown on the free speech. Okay, this is the kind of stuff that is going to continue. So for those of you who hear me talk about like, oh, this is going to be a better world and the future is bright and blah, 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 it is still bright. However, to get to that future, we have to clean up our mess. And this year in particular, being a 9 year, the number of endings, this is a very uncomfortable year to sit in, because we're seeing all the stuff that we know we need to fix and to end. And then we're gonna next year start into thinking like, okay, what can we do? We're already starting to think of it, but like next year will be a little bit easier to start those new beginnings, because it's a 1 year. It starts a new 9 year cycle next year. And so this future that we're building is absolutely coming, and it's a guaranteed thing, but it doesn't mean we do nothing. We have to take the steps to get to that future. It just means that we have the support to build that future, but there's going to be turbulence along the way. And so this is the kind of activity, like the assassination and the war narrative and this and that and blah, all the negativity that's going on right now. Every major scary event is happening to show us where we need to put our attention, where we want to put our attention. And so a lot of people, again, it's going to tie into, well, I'll get to that later. Sorry, it's just later on my list and I don't want to tie it in. But with the throat chakra thing and tying into like, we're activating new levels of empowerment, of self-empowerment. And in order to collapse an empire or to collapse these old grids, you collapse it within yourself first. It is an inside job. This whole enlightenment, this whole ascension thing, this is an inside job. The call is coming from inside the house. Where are you still holding on to issues of control or fear or, you know, all the things we're being asked to face right now? You draw in your own power and become self-empowered. You clean up your own backyard, and that energy spreads to the collective. And the people who hold the energy of building this new future and the people who are cleaning up their backyard, they're the ones who are most powerful right now, because our energy fields and the things that we are doing, it's kind of like a collective code, like, because again, humanity is a collective soul. It's like one soul, and then like every human is just a different spark of that same soul. So every single person is another version of you, and we are going to get to the place where we actually all understand that, because some of us do understand that already, but like the masses don't yet. They can't quite feel that, but we're going to get to a point where we do all feel that, and that's what's going to bring about this golden age, because we're going to feel how that by treating someone poorly, we're treating ourselves poorly. And so all these are going to change, but you have to do, this is why it comes in waves. No one's going to, we can't all do it at the same time. That's just not how this thing works, really. You have to, it starts with a few people, and then more and more learn from those few people, and then more and more. So it just really, really spreads, and it's coming from the ground up. It's not like a pyramid thing. It's like from the base, from the ground level, we're all just like going to lift each other up. A rising tide lifts all boats kind of thing. And so for those people who are looking out at the world going like, well, I can't do anything about the situation in Gaza. I can't do anything about blah, 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 whatever. You're not supposed to. You are supposed to clean up your own backyard and see how that spread, like build out what you can build out. And when everyone starts to do that, that's when this future kind of comes online. And so one of the purposes of the media, which has been controlled by the CIA since Project Mockingbird, they're trying to purposefully distract you with all kinds of negativity and purposefully not reporting on the good things that are happening. And so again, this is where one of the good things about social media and the internet comes in, because there are those of us who are sharing good news and the inventions, like the Norway just invented like a floating greenhouse kind of thing, where it's like a, self-powered, it solves food crisis. It like keeps its temperature. It like desalinates water. It does, all kinds of everything. These are the really great inventions that are coming online, but nobody in the powers that were want you to hear about that, because that would mean you have hope for the future, that it's going to be better, that things can be cleaned up around here, that there is other options than living in war and fear. So it gets really loud before the changes start to happen. And so there's going to be more of these insane, crazy crackdowns in order for us to take our power back. That is what these events are designed to do. And that's one of the reasons why they're allowed by the Galactic Federation and like all this kind of stuff, because it's part of the plan to get us to see our power. And it's this time around, it's taking us conflict to see our own power and to take our power back. There are other ways of doing this, because it could have been more peaceful, but we didn't choose that route. And that's okay. We're learning a lot from that. So there's no judgments on this. But one of the astrological things that I wanted to talk about that sort of helps if you need, I don't know, research and proof in that kind of way, instead of just like listening to me being like, well, I know what's happening because I can see it. But astrologically, there are so many things happening right now that point to a massive shift in humanity and the Enlightenment coming. And part of this is like our own evolution. I've mentioned this in other streams, but we are becoming a new species. We're Homo sapiens right now, and we're on our way to becoming, I don't know, Homo luminous or Homo universalis. I don't know what we're calling it, but I think it might be Homo luminous, because we're eventually becoming light bodies and plasma bodies and whatever. But anyway, we're becoming this new species, and it's demonstrated in the astrology. There's like dwarf planets, Haumea and Sedna and Pluto, the geometries that they're in the sky right now, and all their mythology that's happening, that is associated with them. We are in the midst of a deep, deep transformation, and it's just literally thousands of years of research can back all of this stuff up. One of the things I wanted to point out about this was, in particular, the planet Pluto. And so, again, there's an astrologer who's done like thousands of years of research, and she has discovered that when Pluto goes out of bounds to the south, I know that sounds like, what the hell are you talking about? Out of bounds has something to do with the ecliptic, according to Earth. Like Earth is at a 23-degree tilt, and if Pluto goes beyond that to the south, I don't really know how to describe it. So all I'm going to do is just say that when Pluto goes out of bounds to the south, the power shifts to the people. And Pluto is currently out of bounds to the south, which it has not been in for a very long, like thousands of years, or I don't know, however long it's been. Again, you're having trouble remembering all the details. So I'm sorry that this is kind of a little bit flaily, but just so you know, this is actually backed up by research, and there are other astrologers who talk about it, and I can link some of their things in the YouTube description if I remember to do that. Either way, again, you don't have to trust me. You can do your own research, but this is my own understanding of the things that are happening. And so Pluto is going to be out of bounds for about 4 months, like now for 4 months, for the next 10 years. And so for 4 months out of each year of the next 10 years, for 4 months, Pluto will be out of bounds to the south. And that shifts the power to the people. And that's what's happening. That's one of the things with this Charlie Kirk assassination that has caused the people to be like, excuse me, we're not going to take this anymore. We're seeing behind the curtain. And so we're slowly gathering, it's moving faster and faster, but we're slowly gathering the power back to ourselves. and rising up against the people who are just keeping us in these lower consciousnesses. And once after this 10-year period, when Pluto goes out of bounds, because when Pluto goes out of bounds to the north, that's when the tyrannies and the dictatorship, like the stuff that we have right now, that's what happens when Pluto goes out of bounds to the north. So when it goes out of bounds to the south, the power shifts to the people, which it's currently doing. And so it won't go out of bounds again, I think, either direction for like thousands of years after this. So like we are locked in to something really amazing, but we have to transition from this old craziness to this new stuff. So it's going to happen. And governments are collapsing left and right. Like during this Pisces eclipse, it was like the day after I streamed, I think, I wrote it down. Shit went down in Nepal, Thailand, Japan, France, and Britain. And that's all I know about right now. I don't know. There's probably other things going on, but like, again, the news is just, it's so hard to follow everything and like get all accurate reporting. Because again, the powers that were and the media controlled by the powers that were, they don't want you to know that that we have power. In Nepal in particular, I'm pretty sure it was Nepal, like Gen Z, I think, was the one in charge of these protests. They burned down government buildings. They burned down like politicians' houses. I mean, so yeah, there's a lot of violence. Like I said in my last stream, there's going to, you find your role in the revolution. Some people are here to burn shit down. Some people are here to do gardening and childcare and all kinds of, we have our roles. So you don't have to burn things down, but there are people here who are going to be doing that. So they burned down all of these things and then I think they voted on Discord or something. Discord is like a chat room server thing that you can just, whatever. If people don't know what Discord is, sorry, I can't describe it, but it's sort of another social media thing, but it's just kind of like chatting and you can do voice calls. And I learned how to play D&D on a Discord server, actually. So anyway, they were voting on who should be the president, or I don't know, the leader of the country, and then the remaining, I think it was maybe the military. Again, sorry, I don't have all the details, but whatever happened, they decided to take that vote seriously and put that person in power. And we have all of this power, but we are just, especially a lot of times in the Western world, we're just not, in America in particular, we're just very locked down on the news that we can get. And so it's like, they don't want you to know that this is the kind of thing that's possible. More and more people are seeing it though. So it's not like, I am so sweaty. Oh my God. More and more people are seeing it though. So it's not like, again, the media, the legacy media cannot really control the narrative anymore because there's too many independent journalists and people who are doing TikToks and stuff like, I live here, here is what is happening. And so they're telling the truth. And that's, again, the internet is a really amazing tool for the times that we are in, and we definitely need it, but, you know, whatever. And yeah, I even wrote down like what it felt like, what it felt like on the Pisces eclipse, actually a few days after that. Oh, it was September 11th. It was September 11th, 12th, and 13th, I think, and I just woke up with massive anxiety. I was like, what is happening? I could hardly move. I was just like sick to my stomach, whatever. And it felt to me like dark forces were desperately trying to lock in and anchor in, and they weren't able to, and they were pissed. And so they were just causing all this like chaos and like trying to, it was just a gnarly ass energy. So if you've been feeling really unsettled for like no reason or whatever, because there's also reasons, because we're all in the middle of all these endings and stuff, but if it's kind of coming out of nowhere, this is the kind of energy stuff that I've been talking about that, you know, we can't see it yet, and not a whole lot of people outside of people like the weirdos like me talking about energies and that kind of thing. It's like that is what is happening, and it's really gnarly. They're not going to win, but because they're being flushed out, but they're causing as much damage as they can on the way out. So, okay, the other thing is, and this, we're finally into this will be my last. It's going to take me a while. Don't worry, we're not wrapping up like anytime, but like this will be my last little points. One of the other things that in the aftermath of this Charlie Kirk assassination, was a lot of people online I was following, they were talking about going back to church. And there's a lot of stuff. So I did see a lot of good examples of humanity, like the people, you know, in the face of all these government collapses and Charlie Kirk's assassination, like all the bad things, like there's massive gatherings. Like I saw something on Instagram or whatever, where there's like an opera singer just sang for free, like Ave Maria, just sang for free in the plaza, whatever. And everybody just came in, and it was just like I had goosebumps. It was just like a beautiful, like everyone is searching. They're lost. We are in a dark night of the soul as a collective. That is a massive heaviness that we're all feeling, even if you are okay. Like I am okay for the most part, like I understand what's happening, but I still feel I'm a part of the collective, and I feel all of this massive heaviness. So people are searching. They're just like, what is going on? Our world is insane, crazy people on the internet yelling at people and this and that. It's crazy. So we're all trying to do our best to gather in groups to find God, basically. And so the last point on my little notes thing is, what is God? Because I talk about God a lot, and so it's kind of tied into this, like, the movement after this Charlie Kirk thing, where a lot of people I was following, they were just like, man, I need to just go back. Like the internet is toxic. I need to go back to church. People who haven't been to church in forever are like, I'm going back to mass, whatever. And to some of the people in the spiritual community in particular who understand that religion is a prison also, it's very much like, or guru type mentality, where it's like, the leader has the pathway to God, and you have to go through me to get to God, kind of thing, or to learn about God, or whatever. And I know not all churches are like this, but I'm saying religion in general. This is me, fifth line, human design, universalizing. There is nuance. I have done the nuance, and I am saying, so find yourself in these universalizations. But again, I don't need to explain myself to anyone. But sometimes I still do the caveats like that. So whatever. I'm a work in progress. But the people in the spiritual communities who are like, oh no, people are going back to Christianity and like hardcore fundamentalists and this and that and God, this and what, and it's like, that is going to be temporary, because once people need to find the peace that they need to find. Like, and if that means going back to Catholic Mass, please do that, because we're searching for that. We need comfort right now. And so find the comfort you can, because honestly, churches are holy places, but like, they're controlled by there's a lot of control in religion. And so when I talk about what is God, I am not talking about a bearded sky daddy judging you, making you fear for hell, whatever. Hell is only our own creation. God is love, period. And so yes, everything is a part of God. So like when we have fear and, do bad things and whatever, we are also a part of God. So like there's a little bit of a paradox here, but like that is God exploring itself. It's God allowing the sparks of itself to explore the isness. And a lot of times I refer to God as the isness because it just is. It just is. And it's hard to explain. And so when the truth comes out about these religions controlling the narrative and the psyops and all the things, which is coming very soon, I believe. I think it's going to be a part of alien disclosure, maybe. I'm not really sure how it's going to happen, but we are going to see how our sacred texts, or like the Bible and whatever, they're not the real story. There are definitely codes in the Bible, and I don't know other religious texts, so I can only talk about the Bible. I was raised Quaker, so that's what I studied. I didn't really study, but that's what I'm most familiar with. And so there are codes and truths in the Bible, but that's the best way of controlling the narrative, is to contain a kernel of truth and then kind of warp it from there. And so God is like, sometimes I call it the isness, sometimes I call it God, source, you can call it universe, whatever. Universe doesn't feel correct to me anymore, but I used to use universe. But it's like the holy union of mother, father, God, like divine masculine, divine feminine. And that's like too small of words. It's like words right now are just simply not enough. When you feel God, you know what I'm saying? Like, so And if you're not there yet, that's okay, because I wasn't there until very recently. Like, I couldn't even say the word God for a long time. Even when I was going through my awakening and I knew that God was not this bearded sky daddy, I still couldn't say God because I had so much the visceral reaction to the dogma and the programming of the religion in our societies. And I was like, well, I'm not going to use, so I would use God and source and all that stuff. And those, I mean, I would use source and universe and whatever. And those were my bridges. So as you go through this stuff, use the words that you need to use. But when I talk about God, it is this holiness that is beyond anything you can really describe in words. You can only feel it. And when I feel, and I've talked about feeling the love from the Akashic records in previous streams where I was like breaking down and melting down, and I was like, I'm not good enough, and they hate me, and I'm like a failure, and I'm fucking, and then all of a sudden I felt this immense wave of what I can only describe as love. Like, I was crying. I was just completely melting down from the beauty of this feeling of love in my heart. And I know it came from the Akashic records because I was in zero state to give myself any grace. I could not give myself any love. And they were showing me that I am worthy, that I am loved, that I am perfect. There's nothing to forgive. And Akashic records are kind of just an element of God. It's just, it's like the cosmic internet kind of thing. But because they're so connected to source, it's kind of like an intermediate, not an intermediary, but kind of an intermediary between, I think of it as an intermediary between this plane and God, because I think if you're back in the God space, you're no longer in a human, you're no longer in a human body or like a physical body. You were just like part of God again. So the Akashic records were kind of like a way to send me this God love, and every so often, like periodically throughout the years, as I have experienced this like beautiful peace and this love feeling, I know I have learned that I am worthy. Like a lot of my self-worth, the journey that I have been on these past few years, I've had zero good opinion of myself. I thought I was the lowest. I mean, I knew I was good in a lot of ways, and whatever, but like I really had low self-esteem, like the lowest of the low, and I still kind of struggle with that, like honestly, and that's part of the reason we have trouble asking for help, and like we have all these programs of shame and guilt and hate and fear. Those are constructs to keep us in this existence. Like, we wanted to experience all of those things because all we've ever felt is the love from God. And so we're like, what does it feel like to not feel that? What is it like to forget that we are a part of this beautiful essence of creation? And so then we experience things like we incarnate in physical bodies, and we experience limitation, we experience the darkness, all that stuff. And so we're on our path back to remembering that we are a part of God, and that is part of this awakening and what brings about this beautiful future. Because once we all start to get we're starting to clear out all this density and bring in the light and love from God. And so that's when war and fear disappear, because we remember that we are just we are eternal souls having a human experience. We're in these, it's like a VR experience, like a virtual reality, like our souls come into this body, or any, a tree or an alien, or, whatever experience you want to be having, because it's a journey of the isness. What is it like to exist? What do we do? What do we, it's just a whole exploration of everything. And so that is what we're going to be coming to eventually. And so that is, again, the Pisces eclipse bringing in the assassination of Charlie Kirk. It's like, I have been waiting for something to happen that was like a pop. Like, there's been this like boiling point, and there'll be like little pops here and there where I'm like, ooh, here we go. We're really gonna, and then it just kind of simmers again, because we're all kind of just like fighting and figuring out the darkness and whatever. But I've been waiting for something really big to happen that like busts open some of the veil, the frequency fence that's just kind of like keeping us in this lower frequency, lower consciousness. And this was definitely an event. I don't think it's the only event that's going to happen. But like, it was big enough that people, so many people I know were talking about going back to church. And that is the first step in coming back to some of these original codes of creation, where we all realize that, like, we are the isness and we are supposed to take care of each other, and that God isn't a sky daddy telling you that you better be good according to these rules or else. Like the golden rule, you know, like again, the Bible has really, it is, some of the fundamentals are like actual, you know. So anyway, I just wanted to talk about that because I know I've mentioned God before, and I just have it like, you know, I've never explained what I mean by God. And so I know I've also mentioned in my last stream, I was like, yes, I'm going to be building a monastery and whatever. At least that's what I think I'm going to be doing. It feels right now. But this eclipse, everything, plans keep changing here and there and everywhere. So it's like, I think I'm going to be doing one thing, and it turns out I'm going to be doing this and blah, whatever. So that's my plan right now. Who knows? As I get more downloads and all the clarity that's coming in, I will obviously change plans as we need to change plans. So I think I've really mentioned everything I wanted to mention about the stuff that's been going on right now. I don't think there's, also, I am literally just a bucket of sweat right now. I love that I am just ending out my trash goddess studio phase looking like a train wreck. I'm just a bucket. So I think I'm probably going to end it here, even though, oh my gosh, 1:11 on the timer. I've been recording for 1 hour. Okay. Those angel numbers, new beginnings, the new beginning, it's just, so I think I'm going to wrap it up here. And there's no chats right now, so nobody has any questions, which is fine. We're gonna, I know that I'm gonna be alone or very few viewers until it changes, but that also feels like it's about to change, because again, like I said, I had a person text me kind of out of the blue a couple days ago who does not text me about these kinds of things, and they were like, what is going on, this energy thing? And I was like, I explained all the things, whatever, and I was like, I do also have a stream that I can send you the link to, and they were like, yes, please send me that link. And I was like, ooh. So I feel like more visibility is coming, and that I'm finally like, so again, if you're seeing this video and you have the link and you can share it with someone, you can, all these things help me get my messages out to the people who are supposed to hear them. And so I'm also relying on the people who do listen to me to share, so that we can kind of help. You know, I am here to talk to people and here to answer questions and here to contextualize and to provide a space of like an oasis of relief from all the turbulence that's kind of going on out there. So if you know people who would benefit from this, I would love to be able to interact with people. I do love talking into the, like I will talk all day long and it's totally fine or whatever, but like getting feedback, getting questions, getting comment, like anything helps me to kind of focus what I need to be talking about next. Because yes, I make the notes. Yes, I get certain topics that I'm like, okay, it'd be good to talk about this, you know, blah, blah, blah. But what I call it the Pisces soup. It's like the inner soup of knowing. It's like I am the Akashic Records keeper in human form, and I have all of this knowledge and intuition and gnosis and all the everything. But it's really helpful to me when people pull out the specific topics they want to talk about, so that I can be like, okay, yes, now we can hyper focus on this thing, and I can say all the things that I need to say about that. So I would love for you to do the things that help the algorithm right now are likes, subscribes, follows, shares, comments, you know, all of those kinds of things. And so I do appreciate when I get interaction like that. So please, if you are, you know, if you didn't even think about that before, yay, now you can think about it. Now you can do it. So I am just sharing that. That would be helpful to me. But again, do what you're called to do. This is not I'm not the boss of you. You can do whatever you want. So anyway, lots of love to you, lots of peace. I know we're still in the middle of this eclipse season and the month of September, and there's a lot of craziness going on and all that kind of stuff. I will do my best to be back here in 2 weeks. I'm assuming I can get the key to this new studio at some point and before I need to stream. But again, I'm just going with the flow. So we're going to just, my higher self is going to take care. I am just a part of the plan. My hands are off the wheel. And if it's meant to happen, I'm going to do it. And if it's not, then okay, it's going to be rescheduled or whatever. So I love you very much. You are doing a great job. Please be gentle with yourself. This is a very difficult and complicated and turbulent transition that we are moving through, but you came here on purpose to work through these things, to alchemize the lessons and everything else that your soul wants to accomplish in this lifetime. And you are here this is a once in a soul lifetime kind of experience, to be here for this great transition, this great awakening, because the stuff that's happening on Earth doesn't just affect Earth. We are a part of a galactic family. We are a part of the greater cosmos. And so the things we think that it is kind of like the thing where I can't do anything about the war in Gaza. I can't do anything about this big thing. You're meant to clean up your own backyard. It's kind of like that same thing on Earth. Like, we're cleaning up our own planet so that we can join our rightful place in amongst our star families and start to exchange information and grow our understanding of the cosmos and everything that's going on, the isness or whatever. And so everything that we do is in service to this amazingness that is our birthright. We are powerful royal souls that came here to lift up the rest of humanity, because they've been stuck. I am also human, but like my soul aspects are from different dimensions and different planets and all the things. So I keep saying, but it's like we've been stuck in these like lower consciousness experiences, and we are meant to be more than that. And we've been told that we are full of original sin and only going to hell if we do, that is no. No. And so anyway, I just wanted you to know that you are more than you have ever been told. You're beautiful and you're doing a great job. And I know it's really hard. So I'm going to give you one last big hug and sending you a lot of peace. And I will see you next time. Bye.